But first, I wanted to speak about the sorry state of Victoria, my beautiful home state, where more than 5 million Victorians are locked down in metropolitan Melbourne and beyond. It's somewhat ironic that the state with the most stringent, logic-defying restrictions, which was the slowest in coming out of lockdown, has a second wave as the rest of the country reopens with restaurants and cafes full, schools open, and even thousands in stadiums watching football games. While the Dan Andrews government was laser focused on imposing harsh restrictions on citizens, fining people for visiting cemeteries, playing golf or fishing, it was overseeing the most dangerously lax system for returned travellers. Where it mattered, they were hopelessly negligent. Where it didn't matter, they were unforgivingly strict. And they're doing it all over again, setting neighbours against each other and empowering busybodies to dob in people walking on the beach or kids playing in the park, and fining people for feeding their animals. Here is Karen Evans explaining how she was fined $1,652 this week for travelling 13 kilometres in her car to feed her horse.
You have to understand you're not allowed to be out. I said, I've got no one else to feed my horse for me. And so he's just like, well, you do understand I have to fine you. I said, this is ridiculous. You can't fine me for caregiving just because she's not a human being.
Madness. Should be charged with animal cruelty if she didn't feed her horse. We know that the majority of coronavirus infections in this country are from overseas arrivals. That's where you control the disease, but that's precisely where the Victorian government displayed its ineptness by trusting poorly trained security guards, part-time Uber drivers and nightclub bouncers to monitor hotel quarantine instead of using police and the army like every other state. In Victoria, the hotel quarantine program wasn't overseen by health authorities like it was in every other state. It was overseen by the Department of Jobs, Precincts and Regions, which gave the job to guards, some with as little as 5 minutes of training, and some who reportedly exchanged sexual favours for allowing their captives to leave their rooms. Is it any wonder Victoria has thousands of active cases with households and businesses locked down while the rest of the country is reopening its economy and returning to a new normal? Victorians are paying a heavy price for the gross incompetence of the arrogant Daniel Andrews government. But the Premier, displaying weapon-grade chutzpah, continues to blame the victims for his government's failings. It's our fault for not adequately following dear leaders' instructions. If you were to believe Dan Andrews, Victorians are uniquely stupid and reckless in ignoring guidelines that everyone else in the country observed. And we are to blame for the spike in infections that is not seen anywhere else, despite every other state and territory opening up earlier and faster than Victoria. Sorry, Dan, this is on you, not the Victorian public. And certainly not those in areas with zero active cases who are being needlessly locked down again. Why, for example, is the Mornington Peninsula, with around 170,000 residents and thousands of businesses included in a lockdown that will devastate lives and livelihoods when they do not have a single active case? The pandemic was imposed on us, but the mishandling of the crisis by the Andrews government has seen Victorians bear far more economic and emotional pain than necessary. A fish rots from the head, and after 10 years of leading Victorian Labor, 6 of those as Premier, Daniel Andrews must take responsibility for the culture of corruption, cover-up and gross incompetence that has taken hold under his reign. Whether it's decimating the CFA for his union buddies, systematically rorting taxpayer funds during the Red Shirt saga, overseeing the greatest infrastructure scandal in Victorian history with the Westgate Tunnel project, signing up the state to the Chinese Communist regime's Belt and Road Initiative, or 3 ministers stepping down in a single week over a branch stacking furor, it is all on you, Dan. Incompetence has consequences, and we are paying a heavy price for electing a Labor government that has so badly mismanaged the coronavirus crisis that Victorians have become second-class citizens in their own country.